Good afternoon. Good morning, viewers. This is Emonews, and we are on the site once again. That's at the wash, and we are going to be meeting with government officials, forestry officials, as they deal with the mitigation measures at the wash. Come on, guys, put it together.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jaiza Abinwa. I work as the Environmental, Social, Health and Safety Manager on behalf of MMCD, the developer for the Dominica International Airport project, who serves as the supervising agency for the contractor CR5, or China Railway Engineering Group number 5. We are here at the site, the proposed site for the establishment of the Dominica International Airport Stonefield aggregate quarry and crushing site, which are proposed to supply aggregate materials required for the construction phase of the Dominica International Airport project. As with any project proposed by any proponent or the government in the Commonwealth of Dominica, based on the scale and scope of potential impacts, an environmental and social impact assessment would be necessitated in keeping with the Physical Planning Act. In this case, the Physical Planning Act necessitates an ESIA for such a development, being the quarrying and extraction of construction materials. Insofar as there's a proposal for that development, the ESIA will define and recommend mitigation measures that can address all of the potential impacts in keeping with international standards and the national legislative framework. These have been built into the process from the onset and based on the vast experience of the developer and the contractor. So today I will speak to the specific mitigation measures that have been implemented on site thus far. To start with the retaining wall. Bearing in mind, geotechnical studies were done, and based on the results, it was found that the site would be unsafe for the equipment and personnel without the establishment of the retaining wall. So the retaining wall firstly serves that function in terms of safety of personnel, equipment, and installations. Secondarily, the retaining wall also serves to complement our on-site drainage system in controlling the number of discharge points to 2 points, okay, that you can observe through the 2 culverts leaving the wall. These culverts, of course, join onto culverts located on the main road and then flow along the natural drainage course into the riparian zone. You'll observe that to mitigate against any potential sedimentation or turbidity increase in the riparian zone, on site, we have established 3 sedimentation ponds that have been concreted recently. The function of the sedimentation pond is to remove any sediment within the surface flow before it enters the riparian zone. It will do so through several functions. Firstly, through reducing the velocity of the water, and secondly, through trapping the sediment. So we reduce the velocity, we trap the sediment, we reduce the turbidity, we improve the clarity of the water, of course in keeping with the tourism product that Concord is known for. So you can look to the retaining wall, you can look to the establishment of the 3 sedimentation ponds and the concreting of on-site drains, thereby establishing the on-site drainage system as some key measures in terms of protecting our riparian zone. Now, to mitigate against the activity of the trekking of mud onto the roadway, which will make the road very unsafe for motorists and pedestrians alike, you can observe to my rear, we have the establishment of a wheel wash bay. It is designed in a somewhat concave manner such that the trucks will enter this area, they'll be washed, and any dirt, mud, or particulate matter, fines, etc., will be washed out and then transported to the sedimentation pond so that they can be trapped, and then we'll have a clear flow entering the drainage system. So as required, as the site, if the project is approved, expands, we will establish additional wheel wash areas in keeping with international standards. Another measure that will be in place on site is the establishment of check dams. This one has not yet been initiated, but the check dams will see the construction of several gabion baskets lined with geotextile. They will be located at the outlets or beyond the outlets of the main road culverts. So this would further reduce any sedimentation within the flow from the main road culvert outlet before it reaches the riparian zone. And there will be several layers of these gabion check dams. Okay? So these are the major measures that have been implemented thus far in terms of the retaining wall, sedimentation ponds, okay, and the wheel wash area. And there are additional measures that colleagues will also speak to, such as the buffer zone, which is very important in terms of maintaining it to preserve our biodiversity and mitigate impacts in that regard. But I just want to say to the general public that MMCD and CR5 are committed to following international standards and national legislation as it relates to environmental, social, safety and health impacts, and will continue to work with local experts and residents to get all the recommendations we need to address these matters. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelvin Felix, Assistant Forest Officer, Forestry Division, attached to the Protection and Conservation Unit. To date, the activities of the Forestry Division have been focused on runoff erosion, reducing erosion, runoff and sedimentation, and visual impact of the quarry. The quarry boundaries with the Northern Forest Reserve at the top, and to date, there's a buffer zone which is 50 meters. So we provide a 50-meter buffer zone between the quarry and the forest reserve. We have given technical advice to the developers with the implementation of sediment ponds to be done on site. We have also given the specific measurements for the sediment ponds, which is minimum 2 meters wide and 3 meters deep. This enables for easy access, easy cleaning access of the sediment ponds. Also, it was advised to the developers regular maintenance be done of the sediment ponds, that is to remove the sediments, the silt, in a timely manner. We cannot give a specific timeline as to say perhaps 2 weeks to remove the sediment, but with frequent monitoring, the sediments will be cleaned. Also, we encourage the developers to do terracing on the southwest end of the quarry. The terracing will be done with a gradient so that the water can flow back to the cliff and the water can drain out through the drains, and you can divert the water to the existing sediment ponds on site. And with frequent monitoring, if there needs to be an increase in sediment ponds, then it will be done on site to minimize the amount of sediment erosion going down into the pool, into the river, sorry. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Let's come here. Good morning, everybody, and the listeners on various mediums. I'm just happy to be here this morning at the Deux site. This site is an area that has been quarried before, back in the 1970s. And in moving forward with the existing works for the international airport, the Ministry of Environment, we're taking this responsibility very seriously to ensure that all of the resources and the energy and the mitigation measures are put in place to ensure that the integrity of the land space remain intact. We are very mindful that there's a public concern as to what's happening here within this space, the Deux quarry space. And so our response to the concerns is to connect with the developer and to have them to understand that there are scientifically proven methods of keeping this space intact while we do the quarrying process. The advice from the Division of Forestry is very, very important in this process, because we are on the borders of a national park, and also we are bordered by a major river, and on the other side of the river we have an indigenous community, and we also have residents downstream. So we're taking this intervention very, very seriously. One of the things we're mindful of is that the fact remains that this area has the best quality material that is needed for moving the project forward. The assessments have been done, and this comes from the previous intervention in 1979, when this place was quarried to resurface parts of the Douglas Charles Airport. We are mindful that when we do interventions like this, when there's quarrying, not to be confused with mining, by the way, when there's quarrying done for material, that there will be environmental impacts, and some of them can be very, very visible. The river being brown, being dirty, the causeways being muddy, but we are mindful that we are doing this development, mindful that we can do the mitigation methods. No one remembers this space after 1979 because the forest took over. The developers at the time backfilled this entire space, and that's why this soil is very, very loose. And we forgot that it was an active quarry for some time, because a secondary forest took over. In the same way, we're moving forward to ensure that the work that we do from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in particular will rehabilitate this entire space. So we speak into terracing, we speak into using the endemic species in that space to reforest that space. And it is very important that we do this. We are very mindful that the public outcry is important, and we have to speak to this thing that is important as citizens of our country to question what is happening within our space. But we're also very, very happy and very delighted to tell folks that we are doing those measures to ensure that the integrity of this space can be sustained for future generations. So a generation ago, we had this space excavated for quarrying purposes, and now we're doing the very same thing. The developer has come on board. We had a meeting last year. The Prime Minister was present, and because he had a concern on behalf of the citizens as well as to what has been happening here. And this and many other meetings have been held throughout for the last couple of weeks to ensure that the developer and the contractor and we at the Division of Forestry keep on doing the work that we are entrusted to do. We are very mindful that big development like this can affect daily lives, can affect the way people view the development. But we're also mindful that quarrying has been part of the Dominica landscape for some time. We have quarries on the west coast. We have quarries along the northeast coast, and we're hoping that when we do this well, once we do this well, that we'll be able to extract the material that is needed, and also have a space that will be reforested, and that nature would take its course. So we're happy to be here and happy to hear the concerns for the citizens. But I'm also concerned as a citizen myself that the scientific method of dealing with these situations has to be very, very clear. We ought not to be emotional about these issues. And as a citizen of this country, I get very, very concerned when people get emotional and very reactive. Because there are those among us here, even here today, who are more than able to participate and help in the solutions. But I see personalities that is only coming forward when there appears to be a problem, and try in various ways to magnify the problem. And so we are the Division of Forestry and the Ministry of Environment. We're happy to have this conversation. The conversations or a roadside conversation as a technical person, a scientifically trained person, is not something that we should have. This meeting should be in an office space where we sit and we rationalize the way forward. These ideas of standing on the side of a road and being emotional and using our experience over time to qualify why we should be there and jumping around and prancing, I think it is sad for our country. It's really, really sad for citizens to behave that way. And so we are mindful that we can have this conversation moving forward, that we can sit in as civilized people to have this conversation and to bring all players on board. We have for the last few weeks brought the contractor and developer to the table, and to ensure that they do the protocols and all the necessary work has to be done as per the law, but also mindful that there's the heritage and culture and livelihoods that are also being affected, and that is beyond law and other commitments. So we are at this table to ensure that we can get the best for this country, and that when we balance development and natural resource use, that we can do it in a proper way. I just say that from the Ministry of Environment end, and from me as the minister, I'm open to every discussion, to any discussion, which is scientifically sound, which balance development and extraction of resources, and the best minds can concede to ensure that we have a smooth development of a project that is vital to our country, but also to use the materials within our space to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, and those who spoke before. As mentioned earlier, our objective here this morning, by the request of the Honorable Prime Minister, is to show the media and the members of the public the measures that have been implemented, the mitigation measures that have been implemented since his visit to the Deux site in late December. So we've heard from the forestry official, we've heard from Mr. Benoit from the project, and the members of the media who are here. Welcome. Pose any follow-up questions that you may have. I've also arranged for Mr. Benoit to take you around the site as part of your live broadcast, so he can show you these mitigation points that have been implemented.
So the plan for this area is to ensure that there's reforestation, that we bring back the it's important to have to understand the root that we're dealing here in the past couple of weeks to ensure that we can extract a video, also have it come to the forest and from what I realized, from the advice from the Ministry of Forestry, the sediment ponds, the last week, it is good contained. But still, as a matter of fact, even before this fall, when there's heavy rainfall, we will be making. And so you can imagine that there will be some runoff from this place. And while we have the given basket on the sedimentation ponds, we also have a bit of that happening after heavy rainfall. And this happens every year in the heavy rainfall. And this happens because of even bad practices. Many years ago, when cut on the forest for banana, we cut off the forest for building homes. Some people have private lands that the government has limited and conservation. So all of these are things that happen for a long time. But in this case here, we're stepping into it because we have to regulate what's happening.
Also, Mr. Minister, you did say that in reference to some of the anti groups that are talking about some concerns, there is some kind of remediation. Are you saying that the government asking of a top one-on-one?
Well, Well, my ministry, the ministry I happen to lead for the last 6 years, we have an open door policy. So you can come in anytime. We do have a radio show, you can call it. We have access, we give people access to our spaces. And it's unfortunate that we don't have anything in formal writing that is of this conversation, or even a walkthrough to speak about it, and we just see sort of the narrative on the, like we see in local powers and mitigation, it's I think it's not a good way to deal with issues that affects the national conversation. So it's still open, even where we are at this point, to have the conversation with the public and concerned citizens to discuss how we can also assist us in making this support.
What do you think of yesterday's statement by one of our seniors
Well, that's for me is an icon. I can well imagine that only an icon that if you speak and put it forward, that you have a following. In my mind as a citizen, and Nasu is also a kind of a brother in many senses of it. There are many other issues that I would love Nasu to address. I hope with me as well. It's really strange that it's happening with this one, and maybe that's a start, and that he can join me as a fellow kind of a warrior to expand and to have this conversation with the public as to how we can keep the cultural and heritage integrity of this country intact by doing development. And maybe we will have a more day. So it's not well. We have also issues that affect the space that is fine. We can help us to bring it to a sense of to allow a sense of people to be part of the movement.
The consideration is that
Well, government policy is very clear. Since Hurricane Maria, the total forest destroyed. And again, here's one of the issues there. Some of the folks who are talking about this kind of area were never interested in helping to reforest the country after all the forest was not interested. And nature took back its laws. And the policy is very clear that they want to build a better country, a resilient country, with infrastructure, and to be the first country to the country. But in so doing, we have to use the resources we have, and also use it wisely. So while we're extracting this to do a major project like the airport, we are mindful that it will take from the land, and we have to be able to address it in a timely way, and to address it in a scientific way, that future generations will benefit and understand why we took this initiative in the first place.
Any possible questions from us, please? All right, that'll be nice.
You got the mic. You need the mic.
I need the mic. Oh, well. Good morning, Mr. Minister and Mr. Senator. Very happy that you came out. I suppose in default of the Prime Minister or something. How is the Environment Minister? Thank you. But let's get back to some basics, because there's some things that some of us need to be informed of. For starters, we're mining for the airport. How much materials do we need for the airport? Mining is a general term. Quarrying is specific to rocks. So it's mining. Let's not throw smoke in our eyes. The mining for the airport aggregates. How much aggregates do we need for the airport? And is that the only source? And is the economic advantage of taking care overwhelming that we can do this carrying that we spoke? Technically, when technical people see a scar, you know there's something under the scar. So first question, how much are we going to take out of here? And how do we justify with those numbers opening an entirely new mine for that volume? Second technical question, what type of material that we need for an airport? Runway that is built millions of times over the world, that we need it specifically here, and not from Coliho, not from Asolda, not from Kigwa, not from next door, at what you have that we need to find here. What is the cost, economic cost, resource cost, environmental cost of doing that? Have we put that into the figure? And Mr. Benoit, you speak about sedimentation tank. What are the parameters used to design this sedimentation tank? What are the technical parameters? How much flow we're speaking about? How much sediments need to settle? I would like to see the engineering calculation for sedimentation tanks. I actually have done a few sedimentation tanks in my life. And I would like to assist in seeing whether that you have done the right work. Mr. Frederick spoke, Honorable Frederick spoke about assisting. He also spoke about bringing in, or one of them spoke about bringing in the contractors and the developer, which kind of sounds odd, knowing the little I know about our laws when it comes to a project like that. It sounds like doing it from the cat rather than the horse. We should not be bringing in the contractor. The contractor and developer should be coming here. It's an airport proposal. Well, I suppose design airport proposal which would have decided where we needed material. I saw a drill rig up there. You should be able to tell me what depth are the rocks that we're going to find, what layers are in between, and all the technical issues. You see a scar. We want to know what's below the scar.
Thank you, Mr. Lieber. Go ahead, Mr. Bieler.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lieber, and thank you to everybody else for coming. Thank you for your question. If I don't respond to any direct sub-question, just refresh and I will speak now. Okay? Firstly, just to state that there is a fundamental difference between mining and quarrying. Mining would specify or focus more on the extraction of metals, whereas quarrying would be more focused on the extraction of construction material. Mining would more generally include chemical processes to obtain, again, metals, whereas in the process of quarrying is very straightforward, where you use basic crushing and screening to obtain aggregate for construction processes. Okay, and just to say also, on the final differences and significant differences in fact, in terms of mining and quarrying, is that with mining you have to go to very great depth in order to obtain what we refer to as ore. So you don't go mining for stones, okay? You go mining for ore, which is of a metallic nature. Okay, but when we refer to quarrying, it's normally open pit, and we don't have to go so deep. So those are the two distinctions, okay? In terms of the quantity, the Dominica International Airport project necessitates a volume of approximately 400,000 cubic meters of aggregate of varying qualities and different quantities. Okay, we can have subsequent discussions, Mr. Lidler, upon verification of data from the contractor to provide you with further details, but that is the general figure, which of course, in keeping with project adjustments and realities, may increase or decrease. Okay, so this is a guiding figure. In terms of location, presently the project has quarries located at Anzime and at Crapo Hall Estate with a crushing plant at Hatton Garden. Okay, so in terms of the quality of material, that will be based on the geology of the area, and you can, of course, as has been alluded to previous speakers, conduct scientific testing to determine the features of that material. And based on very internationally experienced firm which we have engaged in the soil testing and geotechnical testing, we have assurance that the quality of the material here is of the highest order, of the desired order, and hence we are coming here. Moving further afield from this location, I just give a typical example. Moving from Crapo Hall, which is in close proximity to this site, to here, is already having significant cost implications for the project in terms of transportation, in terms of resources, which will include fuel, wear and tear, and also significantly we need to consider the impact to the community. Because the further we go, the more communities that will be impacted to and fro in terms of the haulage route. So, based on those factors, we think that this site was ideal, and thankfully, thanks be to God, it has the perfect material for us. Of course, Mr. Libla, we can subsequently explore in detail in terms of the hydrogeological studies and hydrological studies, and geotechnical studies done in terms of the segmentation ponds. But as we know, very straightforward in terms of civil engineering work. So at any time we can meet to discuss these in an appropriate form. Any other questions on this?
I would tend to think so. You said the volume you need 400,000 cubic meters. That's a minimum. If we did looking at 2 meter thick layer of if we speak about 2 meter thick layer of rock, let's assume unexpectedly it's a uniform 2 meter thick layer, and let's assume that it's pretty much close to the surface as you assume, that we don't have to go deep. I would tell you in Korea they're going close to 100 meters in some cases, and that's quarry. So let's assume it's 2 meters thick. That's 20 hectares. Multiplied by 2.25. That gives you how much, Mr. Benoit?
Let me just say
I'm speaking about the acreage that you have to destroy to get the 200 cubic meters.
yes, I think you're misrepresenting what I said. I said that the entire Dominican International Airport project necessitates.
So how much do you need for here?
Of 400,000.
How much do you need
This is
for
not
here?
something that I can express without details and without advice from the contractor. If I had
But
also advice,
how
we will
could you?
seek and to meet to have those details. Remember, I'm responsible for environment, social health and safety.
But that have to help
I will have
us.
the details, but I can't expect you to just produce that detail right here. But definitely, so can you can give you those details.
Hello, everyone. It's who I also want to speak with. Yeah, I am an interdisciplinary ecologist, a PhD student. First of all, I just want to clarify that according to the laws of the Commonwealth of Dominica, the law physical planning act, quarrying, it comes under mining. The law defines mining, including the stones, and there are such things as shallow pit open mines. You know, a simple search could be able to tell that to the public, so please let us not misrepresent information here. What I would like to ask is especially to the Ministry of Environment and to my forestry colleagues, as once being a part of the Ministry of Environment. Again, the official maps of the Commonwealth of Dominica have clearly expressed that this area has already encroached on the Northern Forest Reserve, which is, you know, public information. And before I get further into it, I want to, you know, say thank you to the Minister for your pledge to speaking with the members of the public, especially the scientific authority, and for, you know, keeping it as scientific and factual as possible, for your pledge to respecting the rights of the Dominican people, especially our constitutional rights to access to information and sharing of information, especially with the ratification of the Escazú Agreement in 2024, which gives the public the right, the basic human right to access this information for to be part of public consultation prior to the commencement of this work and to seek out environmental justice and to be safe in seeking out environmental justice and standing up for our rights. So, you know, thank you for your continued pledge to the general Dominican people, but also to our shared Kalinago ancestors. I would like to know, because this area has already encroached, one of your mitigation strategies speaks about the buffer zone to the Northern Forest Reserve and that we are bordering, but the official maps already show that we have taken up forest cover within the Northern Forest Reserve. So if that is the case, which the official maps show and the markings on the ground also show, then we have already gone against the mitigation strategy for a 50-meter buffer zone because we are already inside the park. So in that case, what are y'all planning to do with that information? How are you planning on bringing back that 50-meter buffer zone and restoring the parklands?
Good morning again. So with the slight encroachment that has already happened, the division has stopped the developers, and we have also, together with the Land and Surveys division, came and redemarcate the buffer zone, including the 50 meters, and then the area that is already encroached, we're going to reforest the area. So we did an assessment, and in total, there's going to be an approximate of maybe 2,500 to 3,000 wildlings that we're going to replant in a space of 4 meters distance apart. And we intend to replant for trees that were existing. So we're going to use, I think, the blue maho, because we introduced blue maho here in the beginning, then plant just the wild maho itself and other species. So we already did the assessment of the area, and we intend to reforest the area.
So my follow-up question to that, well, on my scientific advice, I would actually advise against blue maho. Please, I would keep this as native species as possible. Our research has showed, Gary Ogris, who's here with me today, his master's research showed that this is actually the fourth densest valley for our parrots. So it's especially important that we plant as many native tree species as possible, especially food sources, and that would draw the attention away from the neighboring farms, because this is actually forcing wildlife onto neighboring farms and creating human-wildlife conflict. Wait, before you go on to that, because I have another question. Given that they have encroached in this area, am I right to assume that Montreal Management and CR5 or whoever is responsible never approach the Ministry of Environment or the Forestry Division with their actual boundaries? Have you seen their boundaries? Because the boundaries they presented, approximately half of the 160 acres is within the Northern Forest Reserve. And knowing forestry from my first-hand experience, y'all would have never approved such of a project to take out so many acres, or the ministry within this area. So my follow-up question to that is, did y'all give approval for this site to be within our Northern Forest Reserve to take out so much of our protected lands?
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Brisbane. Of course, Ms. Brisbane only was employed with us about a year ago, right? And was one of our young talents, and I respect her professional work on this matter. You know, as I said, the Forestry Division has always had one of the strong points of the Forestry Division is that participatory forest management, and that's something I've always encouraged, because in our small staff we're not able by ourselves to be able to do all the work. So we've always, a lot of people call us about when they have wildlife, we can't be everywhere. So when there's infringement, somebody probably, have, illegal wildlife or illegal lumber, etc. from the forest. So we're happy for that type of interaction, right? But in terms of as you was mentioned there by the press secretary, the Prime Minister himself alluded to the fact he came on site out of some certain concerns, and if you listen to the press conference with the Prime Minister in late December, he mentioned that he was in fact concerned that certain activities were probably not going as it should have, right? Taking that form. And we ourselves were concerned about that ourselves. And since then, that's why the project was actually put on pause for us to be able to look at some of these issues and deal with it in a manner. And that is why we're here today, to actually speak to some of the issues that we're actually dealing with. So Mr. Felix mentioned that we had some discussions. We actually stopped to get the land and surveys to look at some of because we had, as you rightfully said, some conflict in terms of some of the original boundary markers. So in a sense, that actually assisted us to be able to verify in a tangible way some of the areas that were encroachment, and then we saw the minor encroachment that was done, and we immediately put mitigation measures. And I can tell you that since the last visit of the Prime Minister, every single week the Forestry Division has been there with reports submitted to our PS and our ministry, shared with other departments, showing exactly what is being done. If we see that anything is not being done according to the plan, we immediately stop these people and tell them, hey, we have to continue with based on what we're talking about. And we've spoken about the 50-meter buffer zone. we're working towards it. But let's be fair. I'm in any sort of development, while sometimes those things happen. All right. I mean, those of us who build private houses with private homes, we know that sometimes the physical planning division, sometimes we get an approved plan, and then somebody for back will come there. Sometimes I myself had issues with that. So if a back will come and they even cut a little bit on somebody's land, and then you have all these different things and so on, and then you have to try to amicably resolve it. So that is where we are right now in that process. All right. So the Forestry Division is doing this part, and all the other government entities. And as I said, from a political standpoint, we are actually instructed for us to take note, and actually address some of these issues. And that's where we are right now. And I can guarantee you, Ms. Brisbane, as what rightfully said, I think Mr. Libla mentioned that he's willing to come on board. You know me very well, because Ms. Brisbane was someone from since her high school time at the Convent High School, from Titford, so she was coming every summer. I would take her in. Then she went to college. Then she went to university. When she came back, there was not even an official position. I put her in a position just to get her, because I really wanted to get talent, that type of level of talent on board. Mr. Gary, he did his master's degree with the University of the West Indies, again through direct cooperation for Forestry Division. He was working there. So we are for that type of interaction, and we're very happy for it. What I don't like sometimes is that when there's not that type of engagement, and then people go about saying all kinds of different aspersions. I'm not going on the division. I mean, we're public servants, and we expect to get some level of this. But the whole idea is that at the end of the day, all of us are Dominicans. And that is my personal perspective on things, and I really look forward to working with everybody. We have an open, as the minister said, we have an open door policy. Anybody can walk into my office, and I open my door for them, for us to have open discussions. None of us is an expert. So that I myself don't consider myself for any expert on any matter by myself. All of us have our strong points and our negative points. And it's the coming together of the minds that we can able to better build Dominica. That's how I look at it. All right. That's how I look at it. And as I said, Ms. Brisbane, my door, we might have had our little thing in between us and everything else, but my door is always open. All right. We can come in, we can discuss, as you mentioned, some of the species, we can have some interaction into that, but we do have a plan, and a concrete plan, and we're seeing through it. As I said, every week there, we're on the site and ensuring that.
Okay, I don't hear
All right.
answer to the question.
Oh, we'll add there. No, one more question.
When you spoke to the wildlife and bringing back the wildlife with agroforestry, the intention between the Ministry of Environment and the developer at the end of the lifespan of the quarry is to reforest the area into an agroforestry site. So we use that as an agroforestry site. After we bring back the soil, we'll plant in breadnut, breadfruit, penny piece amongst the other forest species, which would be ed for the wildlife, the flora and for the fauna, so they could have food to eat.
All right. So
Just one more question. Sorry. Given the area that, if you were to respect the buffer zone and the protected lands, given that area, it's going to be a very minor piece of land that you have to operate on, and I don't foresee you being able to achieve the quantity of stones that is needed for this airport. They also claim that this has better stone than Crapo Hall, but all geological reports reveal elsewise. So again, in keeping with the respect to our rights and the freedom of information and access to information of the public, we would absolutely love all the members of the public to be able to see the geotechnical reports that would be able to speak to the site. That should be public information and should also be with physical planning. But speaking of the authorities, stepping in and taking control of this site, it is our understanding from first-hand information that there is actually a stop order on this site because this site has no permission from physical planning. So, Mr. Benoit, you had mentioned earlier that you are keeping with international standards, and you did say if the site were approved, but international standards requires you to have permission before this large-scale destruction is done. So my question is, what approval do you currently have to operate at the site, and who has granted you this permission?
As has been, thank you for your question. And if I don't respond to any component of it, then you can just reiterate. Okay, this is the last question from what I understand. The project was proposed in April, and in April of this year, there was a visit on the 17th of April of last year, sorry. There was a site visit including stakeholders, including the Physical Planning Division, Forestry Division, Environmental Health Department, and other key stakeholders, in which every stakeholder was sensitized as to the need for the project, its rationale, all of the details. At that point, the developer and contractor sought confirmation as to whether or not the site was indeed within any protected area, reserve, etc., etc. As has been articulated previously, there was a minor encroachment and that has been addressed. However, from the onset, the intention has never been to encroach, has never been to go beyond the limits. Just to explain to the general public that this area where we are presently is not within the site in and of itself. So sometimes people traverse the main road and they think that this site is also within the boundary. This site consists of several lots, the government subdivision, and the boundary is actually higher up along the ridge. Okay, so just to make that distinction. In terms of the process of project implementation, to conduct the necessary geotechnical tests, to get details required to plan the site, even, for example, to construct the retaining wall, etc., okay, and to do the baseline assessments for the impact assessment, the contractor and the developer were granted access to the site. I will inform the public, I can respect that you see a significant impact to the physical landscape, but in terms of the phases of a project, this project is not yet in its construction phase. The simple thing that will confirm that to everybody is that if it is actually approved and the actual construction phase begins, the volume of works and the potential risk and impact, it will be far more significant than what we are presently facing. However, what I want to underscore is that it demonstrates that CR5 and MMCD, in keeping with all of the other project stakeholders, the mindset is to have the mitigation measures in place and well in place, okay, as we go along. We got access to the site, and we immediately started work on the environmental and social impact assessment, which took several months to prepare, because you have to work along with the Forestry Division to do the initial assessment on the flora and fauna. You also, and make sure there are no species of economic importance that need to be extracted. You also need to work with the police department to do the traffic surveys, to position all of the safety signs that you see along the roadway. That was based on visits conducted with inspectors of the Commonwealth of Dominica Police Force, well before June or July or any excavation started here. So the mindset from the onset has always been to plan, define, and implement mitigation measures well in advance, in keeping commensurate with the potential impact on the environment. At the time that the project was stopped, the contractor was already prepared and in position to do the very measures that we are witnessing today. But we respect that, because as everybody can acknowledge, all stakeholders and the general public is the key stakeholder. So whenever there is a recommendation, as I've said to all colleagues, please let us have the discussion. But what we cannot do is develop plans in the inappropriate forum. For example, we cannot sit here today and come up with any, serious constructive plans or do engineering calculations here. We need to have the data before us. We need to be in the appropriate forum and have a constructive discussion in terms of how we can continue to mitigate the measures. So the project has not been commenced. This is not the construction phase of the project, but rest assured that what we're hoping to do is to demonstrate that by the time, if the project is approved, we have the capacity, the wherewithal to mitigate against any significant impact to the social or the natural environment.
We'll take one final question from the chief and we'll move on, please.
Yes, special good morning to everyone and to all the viewers via the various media houses. I'm really happy to be here today to be part of this discussion. This is the first time that we are being engaged in this discussion. In fact, somebody had to show me who Benoit is, because that's the first time I'm actually seeing him in person. And I honestly feel that, it's quite disappointing for such a major project like this, having so much impact on the Indigenous community. So I'm here today to represent the voice of my people. I'm not into all the other technicalities and so on. but the major impact that it has been having on my community. I've been listening and I've been following, and I heard that there has been an environmental social impact study. The first question I have to ask is, will the Indigenous community assess? Was it part of that assessment? Because first of all, as Indigenous people, we are governed by laws and rules, and one of the things is free, prior, and informed consent. And no one reached out to the council, so I just wanted to find out if within that assessment, whether any consideration was given to our community or the impact it would have on that community. The second question I have is, we're talking about the best rocks, and I just cannot understand it. I mean, we don't have to go to university to think and to reason. We have been building Guadeloupe and Martinique import the stones and the rocks here from Dominica, and they've literally built their country from what they import from us, and they're getting it from the other quarries. So we have an international airport that all of a sudden cannot use the same rocks to build an airport. So the question is, can you make available to us? Because when I came here, I was expecting three things. I asked the Prime Minister yesterday when I met with him and his team for three things. One, the environmental social impact study, that we need to have a copy of it. Secondly, we need to have the confirmation letter from planning saying that they have to go ahead to do the project. And thirdly, the reports stating that this is the only area you can get the best rocks. So we need this information in order to be able to work with you. And we also need to have consultation. It's really disappointing, like I said, to be here the first time having a conversation on the media about this whole project. There are several times I tried to bring it up. I know the PS came to my office, I brought it up. I've never had a meeting with my minister. He said he has an open door policy, but nobody reached out to us, and we haven't seen him, or he never reached out to talk to us about this project. So I'm hoping that, going forward for the Indigenous people, we will have a little more dialogue, especially when it's impacting our communities, and the Indigenous people voicing their concerns about the impact it's having. It's not no emotional story here. We have people who use the river every day and they can no longer use the river. It's itching their skin, so there's a health risk, and we do not know the further health impact it's going to have. So I want to know the health impact it's going to have on the community. There are areas within the territory that have land slippage. In Mahode River and Salibia, people had to evacuate certain areas to be able to move to be safe. How is the destruction of this area, where they're going to use dynamite, if they're going to or not, going to impact these other areas, how it's going to affect them? So there's a disaster risk attached as well. And that is why it's so important we are able to get the environmental and social impact study, particularly to do with the Kalinago territory. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll let Mr. Benoit, I believe, give closing remarks. However, on the issue of consultation, the Prime Minister has stated repeatedly that he is open to speaking with the various stakeholders, and he has also said very openly that he is open to considering the advice, the suggestions, the recommendations from the various stakeholders who have an interest in this project and who have an interest in making representation on behalf of the public. So on that part, in terms of meeting with the stakeholders, meeting with interest groups, having a conversation, we've said, the Prime Minister has said repeatedly that he is open to that. So I will let the Honourable Minister close off, and then we take it from there.
Oh, I want to hold my own. Man's big enough. I don't think that. Thank you very much, everyone here, for being part of this conversation. I think it's an important, healthy conversation to have as it regards to national development. Also, I want to thank you, Chief, for being here, for being across the border into the national space to look at national issues. That's why I'm a Minister of Environment for the country, because I think the national space has a lot to lean on the Kanago folks, but also the Kanago folks have a lot to do internally among themselves. And so I hope in Chief we can address the internal problems before we cross the borders and get into the national space. And also, it's important to note that, like I said earlier on, I haven't opened the policy. I was hoping that we could have had this conversation before. But importantly, just trying to rationalize this entire entire movement here. We have a national project. We have a site that has the material that we need. You can well imagine that if you have to transport material from the West Coast, the number of communities is going to affect. The road network will be destroyed as well. The infrastructure that is being built. So we keep talking about it. We don't have to go to university and stuff. But I think it's also important that even driving a truck through the Canada space when we did the East Coast Road, it affected a number of communities. So this close proximity of that quarry to the airport project will help, because there will be less communities that will be affected. But just to finally say that we're on top of this, the Ministry of Environment, that we are doing the best with the science that we have to ensure that the developer and the contractor will do the best practices. We'll continue to monitor. This is a firm commitment from me as the minister. And I want to thank the staff who've been out here every week, Mr. Felix and Mr. Paul and the other staff who are here, because I think they are taking this work very seriously. And I want to commend them and the director for continuing to help us to protect the assets that we have as a country. And while we do protect our assets, we do it in a manner that we can also develop our country moving forward. I want to thank you guys for being here this morning. We'll be here every week. Monitoring and ensuring that we play our part. And so you're also invited to come in every week if you have the time and energy, and to be part of the conversation as we continue to ensure that the responsibility we have as a government to ensure the assets that we have from nature, we can put it into best practice. Thank you very much.
So there you have it. Mitigation measures presented by the Ministry of Environment, the Forestry Division, the Government of Dominica. So we are here, we are going to get a tour where they are going to be explaining some of the measures further, showing us as a matter of fact. So we are happy to be here to give you the other side of the story. We were here yesterday, and we are happy to be here today. So Mr. Binwa is going to give us a tour of some of the areas.
Wow, it's very compact, it's stylish and safe.
Can you speak in it too? So you're going to show us some of the areas.
Well, just to state that, as has been discussed on several occasions, many alternatives were in fact considered to the Deux site, and in general in terms of the approach to sourcing material required for the Dominica International Airport project. For example, importation of materials considered. And in that regard, you need to have a particular port of entry, because picture on a regular basis when you have cargo arriving and cruise ships arriving, we have to choose between the two. If we had numerous barges of this aggregate arriving, we'd be getting aggregate, our environment would be pristine, but we'd have to wait for additional months and months for vehicles and all the goods that we imported. The cost and environmental impact of establishing a port specifically for the importation of aggregate and construction material was also considered. But considering the cost and the impact to the marine environment and the society, it wasn't viable. So just to say to the public that several alternatives were considered, and based on all technical and expert advice, the sites that were chosen previously were the best at the time. If you see, Crapo Hall Estate is located much closer than this present location. But based again on the quality, this location is within very close distance, okay, to the airport site. Going further would make it, very much more difficult in terms of cost and technical details. Now to move to the mitigation measures, we are here at the top level, approximately 217 meters above sea level. Here you can see sedimentation pond number 2 and upwards sedimentation pond number 3. The water flows from the natural environment in a disturbed area where you have observed some land slippage or landslide. It flows from there into sedimentation pond number 3.
The function of sedimentation ponds is to decrease the velocity of the water and also to allow for the settlement of particulate matter, stones, rocks, and fine particles. So when the water is entering from the natural environment, you can see it is very pristine. When it moves into the area just before the sedimentation pond, or if there is disturbance, or if the flow is heavy, several reasons, it may trap sediment and flow along with that sediment. Hence, when it reaches into the pond, the sediments will settle and the water will continue to flow. If you observe the clarity of the water flowing in the drain compared to what you see actually within the pond itself, you can already observe the difference. And we can move on. Before we do though, we are at this point where you can also observe the wheel wash bay. So before we move on, because it's also in tandem to sedimentation pond number 3. Here you can observe so we are in wheel wash bay number 1, which is very critical to controlling the trekking of mud from the site onto the roadway. Whenever you have trekking of mud from your site onto the main road, it decreases the safety along the main road. So you see it is designed in a concave manner so that the trucks will enter here. They will be washed clean to remove any mud, dirt, debris from them. This effluent will flow into the sedimentation pond. So all of the mud, instead of being trekked onto the road, it will go into the pond and then settle in the pond. Our plan is to excavate the material or to remove the material from the sedimentation pond when it is at 45% of its capacity. Okay, so when the sedimentation pond is 45% filled, we will automatically empty it. We're not going to allow it to reach 50% or 60% capacity. Okay, so this wheel wash area will also decrease the amount of mud that we see trekked onto the road. And this has a secondary function because apart from controlling the sedimentation on site, you'll realize that if we have mud along the road, when we use the water truck to clear the road of that mud then enters the culverts along the roadway and has the potential to enter the riparian environment as a secondary source of pollution. So the wheel wash area serves to mitigate against that secondary source of sedimentation. And we can move to the other ponds and then the retaining wall. Good. Almost. Yeah. That's 5 minutes. Yeah. Also, I can inform you, Emo, that the intention is to also include grills along the expanse of this drain, so that at 10-meter intervals you will have grills also serving to filter and trap out fines and sediment. So we have an expanse or a length of about 70 meters right here to work with. So we can expect at least 7 grills will be implemented along the length of the drain to further trap sediment. If you observe just this geotextile material is just in the drain by chance, okay? But you can see it's already serving the function. You can see the fines being trapped in it, right? So picture if we have this on the grill in place here to trap it. It will function very well. Function very well. Now we would have seen what the water was like coming in from the natural environment. I want to allow the public to witness what it looks like after it has passed through our third sedimentation pond. So you can see the quality of the water now. From the clarity, we can already observe it as well. You know, close, yeah, very clear. And we can be confident that, you know, if we test it, it should meet the standard, you know, that we set into the international standard. So these are our free sedimentation ponds or wheel wash area. You also observe that the entire access road is concreted. This will also prevent tracking of mud from the site to the main road. It will also improve the safety on site for visitors, staff, and for our equipment. When you have an unpaved road, then the bearing capacity of the soil becomes more of a factor. Remember, that was the reason why we had to establish the retaining wall. So with the construction of this access road, the equipment will be safe, personnel will be safe, visitors will be safe when they come to access the site. You also observe slipper drains on either side of the access road. All that is part of the drainage system to take the runoff straight into the drainage system and to prevent any contamination with fines or dirt or mud. We can make our way down to the retaining wall where you can see the outflow along this culvert. And we'll be going to what we refer to as retaining wall culvert number 2. It's one of the two main surface water discharge points from the site. Careful, careful. So here, Emma, you can observe the clarity of the water leaving retaining wall culvert number 2. It demonstrates that the sedimentation ponds have a great level of efficiency. We're not saying that this is the end. We are going to continuously improve. And what will happen in the coming days is that this inlet of main road culvert number 2 will be transformed into a sedimentation pond. So when you return here in the coming weeks, you will see this area established as a fully functioning sedimentation pond to further trap any fines that would be in this water leaving the retaining wall. You have a question?
Yeah, I'm asking, because the project has, there's no work going on now. I mean, obviously the water will be like that. But when the project starts, don't you think that the water is going to be...
No, this is exactly the point I was making earlier and causing everybody to at least consider. Everybody is saying that the project has started, but in truth and in fact, the project has not started. Yes, there will always be impact whenever you disturb any natural environment, but these will be intermittent. Hence, what we are doing now will ensure that when the project is ongoing, if approved, we have a baseline that we can improve upon. So it will not be starting in a chaotic environment and then trying to put measures in place. We have measures in place. If we observe any exceedances of any threshold, we will strengthen the system. All of this is part of the reason for having this transformed into a sedimentation pond and also having the gabion basket check dams at the outflow. So between the outflow of this main road culvert and the river, which is about 30 meters, we'll have 2 layers of gabion basket check dams, and these will further filter the water. They will be lined with geotextile to further act as a filtering out fines and sediment before the water reaches the river. I can show you that part of that there too. What? Oh. Once it's not the camera or the thing. Okay, so we want to mention to the public that the contractor is also very much aware of the visual impact or the impact to the visual landscape, as we say, based on the construction of the retaining wall. Hence, you have seen that they have reinstated some of the topsoil that was on site. And I also want to confirm to the public that, rest assured, to facilitate the revegetation once the plant is closed, the contractor has stored all of the topsoil that was removed. This soil is safely stored at the Londonderry material dumping site, and once the site is closed and necessary to be rehabilitated, the topsoil will be taken from the Londonderry dumping site, brought back here, and utilized in the revegetation and rehabilitation process. So here we are going to do some landscaping to help with the visual impact, and additional measures may be taken, such as possibly painting the wall or doing things to ameliorate the visual impact that it has had on the landscape.
Thank you so much for your explanation. We appreciate you. I'm always available. Once you need me, just come so we can get the updates.
Thank you very much again.
All right. So there you have it. An update on the mitigation works that are being implemented here. We are happy to give you this update. We are going to end this broadcast and we are going to, move along to the other side where we have some person on the side here. I'm not sure what they're doing here, but we'll ask them in a bit. But we are happy to be here to give you an update. Dion, would you like to say anything?
Well, I don't know at what point you are, but I think you may have shown your viewers the mitigation points, which really was one of our main objectives coming here this morning. We have implemented the mitigation measures, I'm told by Mr. Benoit and the others on the site that these are ongoing. I also heard the forestry officer say that they're here every week. So it's something we'll keep monitoring to ensure that, the work here continues in terms of mitigation. So thank you so much, Emma, for being on site. I really like the interaction, the consultation. That's what it's about. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So on behalf of Emonews, we say thank you all for joining us here this morning. We will be here for a little while, so stay tuned for more broadcasts from us. But we are ending this official live, and we'll go back to another live pretty soon.